Sarah Lawrence College, which is right outside New York City, has this tree-lined campus and black box theaters, big dance studios, and little classrooms for writing workshops. And it had been my dream school pretty much forever, but especially because Grace Paley taught there, and she was a leftist activist that even in the 70s included queer characters in her work. But there was a big problem. Sarah Lawrence has the worst endowment in the United States, which means that tuition is ungodly expensive, and there are almost no scholarships. And as a low-income artist, I needed a scholarship to be able to go. But every year I would send for their materials, and I would look at the glossy brochures and the incredible list of classes and all these activist teachers, and then I would set it aside and say, there's just no way. And then my partner at the time, we were going to New York to see some plays on Broadway, as a surprise took me for a tour of the Sarah Lawrence campus. And we went in the theater building with this big wall of windows, and we were seeing the vegan students were selling off all their leather, and there were all the queer students with their pink hair and their piercings, and it was so my place. And when the tour was over, we walked down a set of stone stairs and sat on a bench under an arbor covered with ivy, and I burst out sobbing because it was just so out of reach. So a couple years later, I started applying to grad schools, and I started applying in fiction and poetry, which was what I was writing, but I really wanted to do theater. So I sent an application to Brandeis University on a Thursday, and on Monday, the head of the theater department called me and said, "What do I have to do to get you to come here?" And we talked, and he offered me a full ride scholarship, $26,000 a year. And if I wanted it, a teaching position and a stipend. So you said yes. So I went, and I hated it. It was just like my undergraduate degree with these old white men teaching old white men. And I just said, fuck it. Fuck the money. I applied to Sarah Lawrence in theater, and I got in, and I took out student loans that I am still paying off today. So the first day of school, the graduate students are sitting in the audience of the Black Box Theater, and the faculty is on the stage, and they're telling us what their classes are. And my eye is just caught by this really beautiful gay man. I have gaydar, of course I'm gay. And very sensitive face, and he just looks so gentle and kind. And they mention that you can do independent studies. So I ask him, and he says yes. And we pretty much fell artist in love. And the work was incredible. He had a kind of feminist approach to writing, and he was always looking to amplify my voice and my vision. I'd never studied with anybody like that. And not only that, but the first week at Sarah Lawrence, you don't sign up for classes. You go and you interview the teachers, and they interview you, and you have to both agree that you're a match in order for you to get into a class. And so what that meant is that I did not have a single teacher that I didn't like. And I was going from black box theater to dance studios and movement studios and to workshops, and I was studying improv and comedy and breath and movement. And it was so much embodiment, and I felt so alive. It was like an explosion. And then the theater department went to Stuart, that's the gay man, and they said, does Sky have any play that we might produce in one of the smaller theaters? And we submitted 2 plays to them, one which was very feminist and very queer and Me Too, and the other one which was a kind of homoerotic dark comedy called Murder by Psychotherapy. They picked Murder by Psychotherapy. And so I had this experience of, it was my first production. So this experience of sitting in a black box theater that was packed, it was standing room only, every single performance, and listening to people laugh their heads off at murder and suicide, because that's what I was making funny in Murder by Psychotherapy, which was also a kind of peak experience. And the whole time all of this is going on, there's something just kind of bothering me, which is that the big stage, the plays are always by dead white men. And they're casting students of color and queer students, but they're not telling our stories. So I talked to some people about it, and nobody wants to touch it because we're outside of New York City. The faculty are all working artists in New York City. They can make our career in theater. So the second year rolls around, and one of the other graduate students takes charge of the showcase for Sarah Lawrence at a theater in New York, and she asks me if I want to do one of the nights for her. And I say, yeah, sure, but I'm only interested in producing minority theater. And she says, yeah, fine. So I make a poster and I solicit work by and about people of color, by and about queer people, and by and about women. And slowly the undergraduates start to come to me, and they're like, is this real? Like, I'm an Asian director, can I pick an Asian play and cast Asian actors? Like, can that really happen here? And I'm like, yes. You know, can I do a black movement piece about blackness? Yes. So it's all kind of going pretty well. And then the theater department steps in, and they decide that it's offensive that I did not include straight white men. And they, thank you, and they take the power to choose the pieces away from me. And they say that every piece I chose must be approved, and they're going to add pieces of their own to the night as well. And I go home to my little studio in Scarsdale, New York, and I sit on the futon on the floor, and I just know with my whole body that I need to quit. So I have an assistant, he's a young gay man, I tell him, and then I tell the graduate student, and what I say to her is, I am not a person who participates in my own disempowerment. And then my assistant tells me, you know, I'm gonna take over running this for you, and we're gonna put every piece you picked in Act 1. And then you're gonna perform, because they're not taking you out of this, and you're gonna perform your slam poem about prejudice, and at the end of it, all the minority students are gonna come on stage and say the last lines with you. And then all the pieces from the theater department will be in Act 2. And so that's what we did. And I will never forget that dressing room and how nervous everybody was before. And then after we did my poem and I had all that support, we went back in the dressing room, and all these young, it was mostly people of color, were jumping up and down and hugging each other and hugging me. And I thought, oh my God, this is what freedom feels like. This is what it's like when people get to have a voice. So while all this is going on, one of the faculty members was verbally abusive to the young gay man in front of the other people. If it had been me, because I was a graduate student, they probably would have let it go, but one of their own, they were really pissed. And they came to me and said, what do we do? I said, well, here's activism. Petitions, protests, press, and meeting with the administration. I'll write the article that criticizes the theater department for a lack of diversity, and I'll teach you how to do the rest, because I cannot be the figurehead. This has to be you. So we did all of that. It was really fun to walk into school and see the newspaper open to that article on every desk. But the kids, they got a week of diverse theater promised to them for the next year. And the organization that we made lasted for almost a decade with that week happening year after year after year. And as far as I'm concerned, the head of the theater department, she was just very self-indulgent, not a good leader. She usually picked the winner of the playwriting prize. And my gay mentor got her to recuse herself from the committee. And so I won the major prize of the year. So I guess what I want to say about audacity is, like, I ran with the Bulls, and I was going to tell that story, but this changed my life, and it really taught me no matter how well things are going for you, it's better if you bring everybody else along. And I didn't have a huge career in New York. I did some things in New York, but I went back to Boston, and I started a theater company that did diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I produced 30 events over a 10-year period. And I always thought about the jumping up and down in that dressing room. Thank you.